The sun is coming up. I've decided to do. People ask me about it all the time, and I would rather mix and arrange music. Really, I love both. Probably mix music more than anything else. I'm just going to talk about that for like 10 minutes. And, the first thing to bear in mind is the human voice is a good place because of how people evolved and our ears work to sort of center your music and get your EQs on and working. And it's just like our ears are sensitive to certain frequencies that just happen to be like in the range of that rooster over there, certain practical stuff. So, the number one thing to consider, besides all of the, see how that rooster will grab your ear? That's sort of evolutionary. His voice probably developed in that range. So that it'll grab your ear. Our ears are sensitive in certain frequency ranges, and that's super important to bear in mind. But the number one thing to bear in mind is can people listen to it without hurting their ears? And, right where you reach that point in a mix, whether the overall EQ, the mastering EQ of the mix, which I'm mainly a mastering engineer, it's simple stuff. Is it listenable? Does it hurt to listen to? And so, I uploaded one I did a while back, and I got lazy yesterday. It's definitely within that range of definitely professional and listenable, but it is a little bright, and with me, it's all about taking the time and not being lazy, and I got lazy on that one, so it's ever so slightly bright, but the thing that you have to bear in mind is there's a thing called the Fletcher-Munson curve, and it's where the human ear is really sensitive. So when you're mixing a bass guitar has to be contain many times more energy than a lead guitar. So a bass guitar, I don't know what's going on in there. A bass guitar has to contain many times more energy than a lead guitar to be perceived equally as loud, because our ears are sensitive. And I always bear this, it sounds really technical, this Fletcher-Munson curve in mind when I'm mixing, but what this says also is that your bass guitar will eat up, for instance, anything that's in a low frequency will eat up your entire mix. And in other words, it'll take all your headroom away where you can't hear anything else if you crank it up to where you can hear it without any considerations. So, bass is one of the toughest things, and anytime there's something wrong with a mix, where it doesn't have the right energy, though, and enough of it, generally it's in the bass, for me, if it doesn't sound like a full band mix. Bass guitar is considered a rhythm instrument, and it's the liaison between the bass, the drums, and the other instruments, instruments that play pads and chords or figures. It's the bass guitar is the liaison between the drums. It's a rhythm instrument, as I said, but then this is important. Between the drums and the everything else. The way that I like to mix is bring up the drums. The drums definitely have to be rocking. Cymbals are dangerous in that high end there. Just a little bit of cymbal goes a long way. I've ruined more than one mix with cymbals. Too much cymbals, they hurt your ear. They take over a mix in a different way. But so the bass guitar should also lock up with the kick drum. Bring up your drums, bring up your bass guitar, and a good reference point is when the bass guitar and the kick pulse together perfectly, and you'll feel it, you'll know it when that happens. And then you can pretty much leave those set, and then bring up the vocal and make sure that it's it's not too stabby on the high end and not too muddy on the low end. Another, a lot of it's simple stuff. What I like to do also is to listen to everything in the mix and go all the way through on every track alone, and make sure that it's not too boomy in the low end. If it is, roll off some of the lows, and make sure that it's not harsh in the mid-range, and make sure that it doesn't have too much kind of painful extreme high end, but enough, and make sure you can clearly hear every single track through your speakers. Clearly hear every single track without being muddy or without hurting your ears, all the way through. And just that simple thing alone, taking the time to do that, really simple stuff like that will make your mixes a whole lot better. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of stuff here. I could give you a couple of years on compression. Compression, by the way, it's early, and I'm gonna get some sleep too again. But compression is the way things get loud to soft and soft to loud. The real action in a mix happens in the dynamic range. In other words, the way it gets loud to soft, how much, that's what makes mixes seem really professional. And overuse of compression kills a mix. Underuse of it kills a mix. The idea is to get everything pumping in the mix with authority where it still sounds natural. And also, though, if you think about what is it that's getting loud, it's frequencies. What is jumping loud to soft back and forth? Those are, it's a no-brainer. There are three components of an audio signal. It's frequency, its amplitude, and its waveform. Okay, so let's say that it's bass that's getting loud to soft, and the reason that bass eats up an entire mix and makes it mushy and destroys it has so much energy, right? Follow me there. But if you compress that bass where it can only get so loud, it's like a jungle out here this morning. If you compress the bass, which is a no-brainer, compression on bass, compression on vocals, and compression on drums always. The other stuff can live without it. I don't really like it on guitars. It can be essential, but the point is that if you take and you compress your bass, it's not allowed automatically to get loud enough to take over, to have enough amplitude to take your mix over. And also with low end, with bass, it generates 100 hertz generates a 200 hertz, and that one generates a 400 hertz harmonic overtone and undertone. And instead of having to EQ those out and strip your instrument on any instrument, I'm just talking quick and off the top of my head, you want to be able to keep that beautiful low end and that the beautiful overtones, but be aware that those ripple through your entire mix and they eat up frequency ranges where other instruments should sit. And that's the great thing about using proper compression on your kick drum and bass guitar, and that's how these rappers get that beautiful low end because you're compressing what used to be useless frequencies, 100 hertz and below, sort of getting to be nothing but a roar. You can only hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, human beings. So what used to be a useless roar, 100 hertz and below, it's a roar because it eats up so much energy. But if you compress it, now it's usable. It has authority in a mix, and it has this incredible rich body. Um, but compression. So you can look at compression like EQ and use it instead of EQ. All the great engineers, instead of EQ, they reach for compression first, because with EQ you're controlling what frequencies. With EQ, you are controlling what frequencies are have the most amplitude and are the most uh, perceptible in a mix. There's actual volume and there's perceived volume also. Fletcher Munson perceived. But follow me here. So if you so basically with EQ, you're turning the amplitude up or down of certain frequencies. Well, if you take compression, you do that. Let's say it's a vocal that's grading at like 4K or 8K. And you have to be careful because you can cause S-ing on your mic where you're like, all the S's are sh. But if you do it right, the way you avoid S-ing is let up on the attack of the compressor. But if you compress, here's your vocal, it's a flat EQ, right? And with EQ, you're going, oh, it's harsh here, let me dip it down. Compression is doing the same thing, but here's a thing that you want to, say 4K, it's harsh. Compression is tucking that down. You get to keep your 4K, but it tucks it down where it's in the rest of the mix. It sort of tucks EQ in. I mean, I could give you a couple of years all day, every day on compression. Most engineers could, but there's a lot there. But the main thing is it listenable? People will not stick with. They won't stick with a mix that's hard to listen to. You could put $100 million, motion picture with a horrible audio mix, and that's what we love about movies. They sound great. $100 million movie with a horrible audio mix, and people won't stick with it, but they will watch a freaking homemade slideshow with excellent audio every time. And if you think about it, what do you do on YouTube when you turn on a video and it has painful, horrible audio, just blaring crap? You go like, oh man, turn that down immediately. Same thing. So that's an interesting, important thing. But the number one thing in it is it listenable? And I base it, and most engineers do, whether they know it or not. It's based around the human voice, where if the vocal is clear and it sounds warm and it doesn't hurt to listen to, then as you bring all the other instruments up and they sound natural up against that, so it's a good thing to use a vocal as a reference point, because the male voice is centered around 800 hertz, the female around 1000 hertz. So those are, physical frequency ranges that you can always count on and trust as a good reference point. And people want to be able to hear and identify with the lyrics, of songs and easily listen to it. But yeah, I uploaded one. It reminded me. I already knew it when I did it. It's definitely in the range, in the right ballpark, and even in the pocket. But even 0.1 dB more of high end on that one would kind of hurt. It was kind of an artistic call, but any artistic call cannot out-trump technical calls, So that's one of those deals where I got lazy. But yeah, a lot of people ask me about it all the time. And the best way to get better is do it every day and listen to, reference yourself against when you're mixing, put on a great sounding record that sounds great on all other stereos, and then compare your mix with it. And also ear breaks. There's a lot of stuff there, but the thing is make it where it's easy for people. It doesn't hurt to listen to. So pretty much, if you just follow the rule, hey, this doesn't hurt to listen to, it and it doesn't sound boxy in the mid-range or woofy, in the low end, then you're pretty much on the right track. But people ask me all the time if I'll mix their records and how to do this, how do I mix that. So those are some good. There's a lot of stuff I missed, and I'm just flying off the, going talking off the cuff. But it's one of those deals that mix engineers alone. It's considered it's a hugely everybody wants great mixes, and it's an art form itself, every bit as much or even more detailed really than being a highly refined celloist or violinist or classical pianist. It has all the nuance and detail of that. So anyway, I hope some of this stuff has helped, because people ask me about it all the time. I'll just talk about this stuff off the top of my head. And my main career was as a mastering engineer, which means I'm responsible in the end for the overall sound of the record. And I've worked on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gold and platinum records. Probably a day doesn't go by that you don't hear something that I've mastered. I did the math, and out of 6 billion people on Earth in the last 30 years, 3 billion of those people have heard work that I've done. So that's 1/2 of the Earth's population has heard something that I've mastered. It took, a lot of mega platinum stuff and, Queen's greatest hits and stuff like that, among many, many, many others. That's just an example, but kind of on that order. So imagine the number of people who listened to that particular record, even over 30 years. So it adds up quick. So 3 billion people have heard my work as a mastering engineer. So, people, I'm tired. I think I'm going to go back to sleep. People, Poltergeist ending. This vlog is clear.